So I just had to tie the slide before this, no big deal. So the first one we're going to be talking about today, this is a pretty interesting guy, Edward Bulwer-Lytton. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He has a few fairly well-known quotes. The pen is mightier than the sword is from him. And he also was the first guy to use "it was a dark and stormy night." So that's interesting. He wrote an early example of a science fiction novel. He was quite a popular novelist in his time. And he wrote The Power of the Coming Race, which was later retitled to Vril, The Power of the Coming Race. In the book that he wrote, Vril was this magic healing elixir, but it could also be used for destruction. So it was basically this super fluid that could do anything. They used it to light their caves, and there were magic angel people living underground. Whatever. That's not the issue here. What started this all was that some people took it seriously. Because it was such an early example of science fiction, they didn't really understand that it was fiction. And they thought that he was talking about an actual, like, society of angels that lived underground and had this magical vril. So, what happened was this one society took it and wrote a lot of, like, philosophical and papers about it and really brought it to the mainstream. And because he was already a popular author, a lot of people had read this and they were like, oh, you know, it's totally real. And it sort of fizzled out after a while. And then, during World War II, something interesting that happened was that people rediscovered this idea and associated it with the Nazis. So they decided that the Nazis had found this magical vril and used it to power their planes and whatever their weapons were. And so this was their theory, that they had a secret society who lived underground and they had this magical fluid that would power all their weapons and whatnot. So that was fun. And one of the best parts of this pseudoscience, I think, or conspiracy theory maybe would be a better word, is a couple of books that this one guy wrote fairly recently, Michael Fitzgerald, and they just have the best titles. One of them is just called Adolf Hitler, A Portrait, but the other one, the prequel to that, is called Stormtroopers of Satan. So really, how can you resist a crazy pseudoscience like that? Next up, we have something called the Nibiru Collision. This is fun. This woman here is Nancy Leader. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. Her title, the title that she goes by, is Enhanced Contactee, an Emissary of the Zeta Reticulans. So that's a fancy title. She claims that she receives messages through an implant in her brain from these little gray aliens. So clearly, she's all there. They warned her, apparently, of this impending planetary collision that's going to happen. And originally, she had said that it was supposed to happen in May 2003. And she went on all kinds of media, the radio and television, and told people, like, you know, this is how to prepare, and you guys should put down your pets, and, you know, do all of this stuff. And a lot of people took her advice. And one of the weirdest quotes to come out of that was, she said something to the effect that, oh yeah, you know, once you put down your pets, you know, they make a good meal. Ooh, okay. So now that this obviously didn't happen in May 2003, nothing, you know, enormous collided with us, and reversed our polarity and stopped our rotation and, you know, all of these crazy doomsday things that were supposed to happen. Her story now is that, oh, if we told everyone when it was, it would give them the opportunity to impose martial law, and so that would be bad. So we're not going to tell anyone when it is anymore, but it's coming. So what a lot of scientists, especially astronomers, have actually been harassed by people. Like, they'll have people calling them really concerned and be all like, I heard there was this thing that's going to collide with us, you know, please tell us, you know, what's going to happen. And one fairly prominent astronomer, I don't remember his name at the moment, actually said that this was what he spent like 90% of the time refuting as far as pseudosciences goes. So it has a fairly big impact in that way. What actually, a lot of their claims now are that it's associated with 2012 and all of that craziness. Some of the things that they say to sort of bring this into the field of reality is that it's hiding, you know, we can't see it yet because it's hiding behind the sun. Geometrically that's not even possible. And one of the funnier things that came out of this was that at one point they claimed that the telescope in the South Pole was built to track this thing. And they said, oh, they got a picture of it, they got an optical image of it, and they passed this off on YouTube and on a lot of their sites for a while as a picture of this, you know, planetary object that's about to collide with us. In fact, the telescope at the South Pole can't take optical pictures, for one thing. And second of all, this is an object called VH38MON, which is an expanding gas shell. So if it did collide with us, nothing much would happen anyway. It's also something interesting to note is that they often latch on to this theory of nemesis, which is a proposed companion star to the sun. And somebody had come up with the idea that extinctions are more cyclical than they appear, and so maybe this companion star causes us to fly into an asteroid belt every approximately 27,000 years. And this is actually a scientific theory that isn't completely debunked yet, but has nothing to do with this. They're just sort of latching onto it to give themselves, you know, a little tiny bit of credibility. This is the fun, interactive portion of the day. So we want to get everyone up if you can. In body or spirit. We're going to put one hand in tummy, and one hand with 2 fingers, and one on each side of your sternum. And we're going to go up and down. Slowly. All the way up onto your neck, all the way down. Feeling any better?
No.
Now, take your hands like this, in front of you. Don't hit anybody else. And like this. And you want to, like, give yourself a hug.
I feel better on it.
Another one. Nice hug. Okay, you can all sit down again. So these movements, this one here is called pushing the brain button. And it's supposed to turn your brain on. And the theory is that it improves blood flow to your brain. Through what mechanism? Who knows? We're just pushing the brain button. And this one here is called hookups. Because why not? And by doing this, you're supposed to calm your brain and improve concentration. And to be totally honest with you, I found these pictures on Wikipedia and then I made up the movements, because really, they haven't done much better than that. Okay.
Did you get those pictures from Wikipedia?
From Wikipedia,
oh,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
The idea behind this is that any movement that you make with your body can enhance learning, and you can use it to learn something that you're having trouble with. And a lot of people in skepticism, there's often the question, what's the harm? What's the harm in believing something? The harm here is that they're peddling this to people with special needs. And they often use it as, they call it a technique to, you know, improve their ability to learn things and to improve especially their social interaction and things like that. And in the UK, it's taught in a large portion of state schools. They pay these people to come in and teach these kids how to do these movements to improve their learning. And it's just a total colossal waste of money, because there's no efficacy here. I mean, it's great if you can get up and have a break and do some movement, but you know, to tell them this is going to improve their learning is totally ridiculous. Next up, we have explaining pseudoscience with more pseudoscience, which is, you know, always a good basis to start with. Most of us have heard of dowsing, which is, I didn't realize they had this much, you know, ridiculous crap associated with it, but apparently they do. And so dowsing is, you know, looking for something, or divining things with these pendulums or these little sticks. And what I didn't realize was that they have a scale to talk about the amount of energy present in a place. So they call it the cosmotelluric energy that's inherent in a place. And the best part about this is the method to reading this is a guy walks around with like a pendulum or something, and he picks a number, and he tells them that's what the energy is. So that's good. 6,500 is neutral. That's, you know, a normal amount of energy. 10,000 is the ethereal, you know, power. It's a powerful place. But a good quote that I found was, the unit of the Bovis scale has no known definition and is in no way based on physics. I think that's a good quote to sum up this thing.
But is it based on science?
Absolutely not. And this picture is totally unrelated. It's a picture of a colony called the Marixella bovis. So, you know, I couldn't find a picture for some, you know, a made-up thing, so I put some bacteria up there. The last ridiculous pseudoscience we have here is called 714X. And on the scale of, you know, funny ha-ha and awful, terrible things that people do, this is, you know, toward this end of the scale. This guy is called Gaston Naessens, and he named his product 714X because he's a huge narcissist. 7 goes with is G, is the 7th letter of the alphabet, and 14 is N, which is, you know, his initials, and then X stands for 24, which was 1924 is the year he was born. And 714X is also known as trimethyl bicyclonitraminoheptane chloride. And they claim that it cures all kinds of things, like everything from cancer and MS to fibromyalgia. And the way they do this is by interacting with imaginary beings called somatids. And somatids are pleomorphic is the word that they use, which is a fancy scientific term, which means that it can change shape. So basically they can look like anything they wanted to. And he has this fancy microscope, which, in his own words, defies the laws of physics. So there's your first clue. Somatids, they tell us, are neither bacterial, nor fungal, nor viral, and yet in this scale from his own site, they are all of these things at once. Who knows? What is interesting about this is that it's banned by the FDA. They found that when they tested it to be 94% water, it had a tiny amount of salt in it, and some, what was it? It was camphor that was in it as well. But in Canada, you can still get it under what's called the Special Access Program for Compassionate Use, and you can get it because they say that there is no other way to treat these things, so why not let them try this? But I mean, we're giving money to this guy who is a total fraud, and I mean, it's the Canadian way. And so he's been under scrutiny, and he's done, you know, he's gone through the court system and everything, and still in Canada we will let people buy this to try on themselves when there's no evidence for it at all. And so I think that's really kind of sad. Yeah. So those are 5 ridiculous pseudosciences you've probably never heard of. Has anybody heard of all of them? I'm curious. Anyone? Did you? Had you heard of all of them? Darn, I got one person. Alright, well, I got almost everyone on at least a couple. So thanks very much.
Oh, question.
As a side note, Brain Jam is being done here in elementary schools.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Fun.
What?
I've seen it.
So not only in the UK, but in Canada as well.
Last week.
Wonderful.
Oh, where? What school?
I'd rather not say which school. It's an elementary